smoke is quieting down. Seems like we've got to a lot of the smoke. Dub, you got smoke?
All right, y'all, we back. Now, on episode 797 of the Joe Budden podcast, it's titled Clean Sweep, right? We got a solid episode. It was a good episode. I'm not going to front. But it starts off with something unexpected. Melyssa Ford seemingly snitching on QueenzFlip while he wasn't even there, or she thought he wasn't there. When Flip finally heard what she said, he was deeply hurt. It was surprising, especially considering how much of their relationship, has gotten better over the last few months or whatever, you know what I mean? Now, we have to do a deep dive into the situation to determine if this is something worth keeping an open file on. But let's be real. This isn't the first time Melyssa has called out Flip or snitched on him, told on him, all of that. This ain't the first time. She has a history of feeling like he gets special privileges and she doesn't think it's fair. In fact, the most recent time she did it was before episode 797. It actually took place in episode 796, but it was caught in the behind-the-scenes episode called Wild Nights. Now, let's take a quick look at this behind-the-scenes episode real quick. Look at the files.
What are you pointing at now?
You know what I'm pointing. I'm just pointing at Flip C. Did he call anybody to say, I'm taking my day off that he's allotted?
No, he's not here yet. In case you haven't noticed.
Now, just to keep you all up to speed, the behind-the-scenes episode Wild Nights was filmed during episode 796. And in that footage, Melyssa made a direct gesture to Ian. You saw it. That's Joe Budden's manager. She was snitching on his tardiness. She specifically asked Ian if Flip had even called in to let the team know he was taking the day off. Now, this wasn't a casual observation. She was actually very managerial in that moment. She wasn't actually doing her job or focusing on herself, which, quite frankly, I think she should have been. You feel me? Like, she was on Flip's tail. And he actually came in late. Like, he ain't take the day off. Like, she was like, yo, did he call you to let you know he taking the day off? Like, she was wilding. Now, fast forward to episode 797, she went even crazier, not knowing that Flip was actually walking in to hear everything she was saying. That's where things really took a turn. Look at the files.
Speaking of an
You
effort
read it
to
last
be-
part, too, when we was about to start. You say, where's Flip?
I sure the fuck did, because he gets special treatment.
Who?
Oh.
Flip.
Yeah. You think Flip gets special treatment?
Yes, and I know that I'm not the only one. I'm the one who
So
will speak
now
up.
you're speaking for other people.
Well, okay, I'll just speak for myself
Do you
right
think
now.
that you are allowed to speak for other people?
No, not necessarily.
Okay, so speak for you.
But every once in a while, people just do this. Phew, thank God she said it.
And you think that's what's happening? Tell me why you think Flip gets special treatment.
The motherfucker.
And then we can start.
He comes and goes.
I'm not
as
dogpiling you either.
Okay, he comes and goes as he pleases. He decides he wants to stay or he's gonna leave. He shows up when he wants. He never writes on the board. Like, it's endless.
Okay.
It's endless. It's endless.
Okay, now, in my guess, I think it's just Melyssa and Mark Lamont Hill that really has the problem with Flip and his privileges. I think they talk outside of the pod, on the phone, whatever, text message, and talk about the things that Flip does. I really do think that. Now, before we deep dive into this next clip that we just played, pay attention how in the beginning of the clip, Mark Lamont Hill immediately agrees with Melyssa. He co-signs her feeling that QueenzFlip gets special treatment. You feel me? Now, as that moment The moment that he did that, Melyssa doubled down. She went even harder, saying that, when she speaks up about Flip's works situation being unfair and how he gets special treatment over the other staff members, people actually are happy that she's the one saying it. Now, this is where Joe Budden steps in. He breaks her down, questions whether, she should be even speaking on the issue. Can she really speak for other members of the podcast? He starts going in on her. That's where the discussion gets a little interesting. Melyssa then goes on to say that Flip comes and goes as he pleases. That's her first major point. I don't know if that was a good one. And Joe responded, making it clear that when Flip negotiated his contract, that's his business. And what he does is his business. And how he negotiated his contract is the reason for how he moves. And if he has those certain privileges, that's between him and Joe. Now let's look at Flip's situation objectively. He has kids, and Melyssa Ford doesn't. So does that mean that he should have more flexibility with his schedule? I would argue yes, because anything can happen with his family, and he needs to be available. That's just a fact. And that's why I feel like Melyssa shouldn't have brought that up. Flip could easily take offense to that. And honestly, why does she even care? As long as she's getting paid for what she signed up for, why is she even worried about how Flip operates? Then she takes it a step further. She starts clocking his lateness. This is like it's starting to feel like a real Karen move right here to me. She accused Flip of not contributing enough. Come on now. The final point she makes is that Flip never writes on a board to contribute to the podcast topics. Now, let's be honest. I don't know if he actually does or doesn't, but if he doesn't, I can see how that could frustrate, the rest of the team. If everyone else has to come in well prepared and researching every news topic, every music release, every current event, and Flip just gets to come in and act wild. I get why that might rub people the wrong way. But at the same time, let's remember what Joe Budden himself has said. On one episode, Joe literally told Flip that he doesn't have to come in well-researched. He told Flip that his role is just to come in, scream, and be quiet. That's what, Flip has been brought in to do. To be the wild card and keep that street element alive on the podcast. Not saying that Flip is the most street dude, but let's be honest. Too much professionalism on that joint could get boring. And Flip's unpredictable energy is needed at times. We all know that. Now, Melyssa Ford should just focus on her own contract and what she has to do to stay on the podcast. But I feel like she's trying to gain leverage by throwing Flip under the bus. And here's why. I think this all stems from the criticism that she has, been receiving about not doing all the work herself for the Hot and Bothered podcast that she's running. If y'all remember, there have been plenty of slick remarks from Joe and the crew about Melyssa not being hands-on enough with her own podcast. Now, could this be her way of proving that she's more valuable than Flip? That she does more work? Let's not forget, Flip was the only one outside of Joe consistently doing content outside of the JBP. But now Melyssa is stepping into that lane as well, and she's producing her own stuff that naturally creates competition between anybody, right? If you need proof of the tension, just look at how she reacted to Flip's weekend. She told Flip that his weekend looked a little lit, but that's not true. It was lit. Flip was just in the room where Imani punched back Witty. And, that's real content. So is there some subtle competition brewing between Flip and Melyssa? I think so. And let's be honest, things could get worse. You feel me? Now, I want to hear from y'all. Let's break this down together. Do you think Melyssa Ford was out of line for calling out Flip, his work habits and all of that? Or should Flip be allowed to come and go as he please since he has kids? Or should everyone be held to the same standard? Does Melyssa have a point about Flip not, contributing enough to the podcast behind the scenes, or is she just trying to gain leverage? Is this turning into a power struggle between Melyssa and Flip? I don't know. Who do you think is more valuable to the podcast? And do you think Melyssa is still dealing with criticism about Hot and Bothered podcast the right way? And is that making her more competitive? Let me know what you think in the comments. Let's get this conversation going. Should we keep an open file on this one? Let me know. And we'll be back with the files.
My guy Dub, too. That's my man, though.
Gang, gang.
That's my man, Big Dub. Who the fuck has a problem with Dub?
Yeah,
Dub didn't
how
do
long is it?
nothing to nobody. Dub ain't do nothing but drop that interview and shake the streets up. All
That
Dub
interview with
did was
Imani,
give
come
y'all his
on.
blood, sweat, and tears through the content. And this how he's treated?